Hello everyone, welcome to our lecture number 5 of Indonesian Value and Ideologies. At this time, I will give you a recorded lectures of the topic Secularism, Islam and Pancasila. It's the second part as continuation of the previous meeting on the same topic. As you know, in the previous one, we already discussed the context, the process of the creation of Pancasila. Pancasila itself literally means the five principles, the philosophical base of the Indonesian state, Indonesian country, and Indonesian nation in general. And as you know from the previous meeting, it's not easy. The context was actually is very difficult. Pancasila should be understood as a compromise of a different faction in Indonesia in the late colonial time, when they have opportunity to discuss of what kind of a state, what kind of a country, what kind of a government they're going to make it if they got independent when the colonial time was over. Indonesia itself, yes, the majority is a Muslim, and there are very strong Islamic parties, Islamic organization, Islamic faction, with the idea to promote for the creation of the Islamic State or the Islamic government, which is mean whereas the new state have responsibilities to govern the religious affair, or more specific, the Islamic affair of the population. While there is a very not quite big but very influential educated elite who receive Western education, have a background from the aristocracy, the Priyayi group, which is very value and the Javanese tradition, but quite adamant with the Islamic value, while they are mostly Muslim. And there is also the communist group, which is in the late colonial time is a bit struggle because of the historical process they have. But they also have a different idea, the way the state should be governed, which is based on the communism. So at this time, we're going to discuss what happened then after the Pancasila finally accepted as the philosophical base of the foundation of the state. And as you know today, Pancasila is a good thing. It gives the Indonesian state, the Indonesian nation, a cause, the way they govern the population. At this lecture, I will divide into 4 topics. First, the regime change, the context, the implementation of Pancasila under the Sukarno regime and the Suharto one. There is the term, if you're familiar, known as the old order and the new order. The old order is mean the order of Sukarno, and new order is the order of Suharto. So if you're asking, is there they call it like that? No, this actually the Suharto make it. When he replaced Sukarno, he said that his order is a new order to make it different, to differentiate with the previous one, the Sukarno regime. And the second topic was important. The both two order have make what call it the politicization of Pancasila. The way the political dynamic, the political process to make Pancasila as the philosophical base of the nation, and its consequence in the ongoing government. The third topic is the Islamic challenge. So, I refer to the after the Reformation, when the Suharto regime is collapsed, and there is a lot of challenge for its legacy, and what of legacy is related with the Pancasila. And what they want, the Islamic challenge is mean some of Muslim group they want to retreat, to get back to the original version of Pancasila, which is quite different from the current one, which is mostly accepted, the recognized one. And I give the last topic of the future of Pancasila with a different context in Indonesia today. Okay, let me start with the discussion of the old and new orders. The Sukarno era is spanning from 1945 and 1965. It's called the turbulent years. What it means turbulent is first, the new state, the new country who just got independent is not immune, it's not free from the external threats. What is called the Dutch police action or Dutch military invasion. So after the end of Pacific War, the end of the collapse of the Japanese empires, and hand out all and hand in all the previous colony, including Indonesia, to the Allied force. And it's mean the Allied force is trying to get it back, the archipelage, the colony of Indonesia, to the former owners, the Netherlands, the Dutch. And they tried to take it back. So there is two military invasion to the nation, to the archipelago in 1946, and 48. Aside from the external trade, there is also the internal trade, the regional insurgencies, based of the idea to promote, to create the Islamic State in Aceh, in West Sumatra, in West and Central Java, and West Borneo, and South Sulawesi. But also the different agenda from the Christian group of Moluccas, that is, they try to create more like a Christian state in the Moluccas. So the rebellion, the insurgencies is also there. While in Jakarta or in Java in general, there is kind of a political consultation, the ideological political consultation, the way the government, the state should be governed. First, one, the secular nationalist group, they want is becoming more secular, nationalist country. The Muslim, the Islamic group, they want to create the Islamic State. They want Indonesia to be an Islamic state. And the communist group, they want the Indonesia as a communist country, which is more socialism and more idea with the anti-capitalist agenda. All of them represented in the result of the 1955 election, which is all the three groups dominate the result of the election, the vote. But no one have a dominate the political. In the economic context, there's a hyperinflation, the impoverished of the life of people. Indonesia is in the brink of bankrupt. There is a lot of poor, they don't have anything to eat, and inflation was very high. And all of the misery will end up with, call it the 1965 tragedy. It's initiated by the cooperated, the failed cooperated by the communist group in Jakarta. They kill about 7 or 8 military general and try to control all the army and the politics in Jakarta and other regions, including in Yogyakarta and other parts. They fail. And after they fail, there is kind of a revenge. The revenge is coming from the Muslim group and supported by the military and to kick out all the communism in Indonesia. I have to say with a pity that the result was not quite good. It's recorded about 500,000 to up to 1 million Indonesian was killed during the time, accused as a member of the communists, or have a link with the communism. The violent coup d'etat and then followed by the massacre of a lot of communist people in Indonesia is also mean the end of Sukarno regime. There is kind of a distrust from the parliament and the population. There is a mass rally protest in Jakarta, in Yogyakarta, and other big cities in Indonesia against the communists, and they then finally against Sukarno himself. So Suharto is the hero here. He, a former military general, then received a mandate to govern the state and design the new order. Suharto is given by a lot of support from the Muslim group, the militaries, and secular nationals, students, academia, and almost all the members of the society to try to make it Indonesian better. One of what he did is dissolve and ban any form of communism and then start promoting economic development. So the program and project for the economic development and have a cooperation with the US, the British government, the British counterpart, World Bank, IMF. And what it's now to do is kind of a economic liberalization. This is before, under the Sukarno, the economic system of Indonesia is very close. It's quite similar to the communist system, which is government-centered and not liberalized. And its mean is very controlled, but not quite good, the result. To do all of them, he promoted what call it the security, peace, and political stabilization. And I will highlight this political stabilization agenda, which is meant to repress any contestation of political ideologies, which is the ways happen later on. In both two regimes, we have to consider the way they use Pancasila, or the way Pancasila is then understood in Indonesia. I call here is the politicization of Pancasila. First, Sukarno is known as a designer, the person in charge that promote the idea of Pancasila, the 5 pillars. What Sukarno did after, at the time, under his regime, he make it Pancasila as the sacred, the kind of sacralize Pancasila as a matter of life and death of our nation. So it's kind of the reverence for all of them, for all of things in Indonesia, very sacred. Everybody in Indonesia should just accept Pancasila and have no question, have no inquire of asking question about the legality, the legitimacy of Pancasila as the philosophical base of the nation. So we call it the what I mean with the sacralization. And based of this part, he tried to contend with the liberal democracy and invent the guided democracy. What's meant by guided democracy is a shift for the parliamentarian to the presidential system. During that time, the Indonesia's political system is parliamentarian, and the parliament member is elected under the 1955 election. It's call it a very democratic one in some aspect. And the member of parliament is to decide the nation. But because of the existing political contestation, there is never any government founded and have opportunity to work for the betterment of the nation. There is always opposition that is working very hard to topple the government. And in the end, never exists any stable government at the time. So Sukarno have the idea, he's dissolved the parliament and then moved the system into presidential system and put Sukarno as only a head of the state. So not only a head of the state, but also the head of the government. So responsible to govern. And he did all of them. He said that because he consistently applied Pancasila, which is Pancasila is not similar to the liberal democracy, but guided democracy. And here Pancasila is represent the three political contested ideology in Indonesia: nationalism, agama, Islam, and communism, or dubbed as a Nasakom, nationalisme, agama, and communism. And he suggests all of the group, both the secular, religious, Muslim, and communist to work, and including the military, to work together for the government of the nation. And all of them then is like a wrap up. We do this kind of system under the guidance of the Pancasila. So Pancasila is becoming very sacred, very sacred. It's the resource for the political contestation that plagued the government during the Sukarno regime. We can see this, the symbol of Pancasila. If you're not familiar, this badge or the armor is in the Garuda, in the bird, the mythical bird of Garuda, the symbol of Indonesia. It represents the 5 pillars of Pancasila. You can see the stars, the chain, the banyan tree, the head of coal, and the paddy, and the cotton. What does that mean? Okay, just imagine what that means. Why it represents the 5 pillars of Pancasila. Here it is, the answers. The 5 symbol represent the 5 pillars of Pancasila, which is divided into input, process, and output. The input is a star, or is the first sila, the belief in God, which is God, religion, is the input of the sources for everything. And there's a process that's related with the 3 sila, 3 other principles. First is humanity, represented by chain, the brotherhood, it means. And the second one is the first sila, the unity, is represented by the banyan tree. The banyan tree, or in bahasa Indonesia, it means pohon beringin. Why pohon beringin, or the banyan tree, is very important? In Java, particularly in Central Java at the time, banyan tree is related, is a very mystical. It's believed that the goddess or the spirit is living in the banyan tree, and people try to protect that. Some worship it, and it's kind of unite people because of they say have a very powerful. It's a source of the power, if you want to. The unity is made of that. The number 4 is the head of a co. It's a hard working. It's a democracy. So it means that. And the output is the paddy and the cotton. What this means is a social justice. But what it linked with the paddy and the cotton. The paddy is made of food. It's mean food. And the cotton is represent the clothes, the dress. So in Indonesia, the basic need of people is first is food, pangan, in bahasa Indonesia, and the second one is a cloth, the dress, which is made from cotton. So paddy and cotton is made food and dress. They represent the two basic needs of the Indonesian people. As long as they got, they will be happy. So it's the output. Now let's move to the way Suharto do with the politicization of Pancasila. So while Sukarno tried to sacralize Pancasila as the foundation of the state, of the nation, as a reference for everything, Suharto in the beginning have no contention. So he just follow. Pancasila is already established as the source, as the a kind of a ideology itself, ideas, the way we have to be Indonesian, the way Indonesia should be created and should be governed. So Pancasila is under the Suharto is just cemented again as the sole basis of ideology above any political ideology that exists in Indonesia. So it means every organization, political parties, and everybody in Indonesia, living in Indonesia, should acknowledge the important, the prominent role of Pancasila as the source of their own one. So what he did to do that, so to make sure everybody follow that kind of idea, so they have no different topic. So you might be a communist, yes, okay, as long as you follow Pancasila. You want to be secular, okay, but you follow the rule of Pancasila. It's mean like that. If you're Muslim, you have an Islamic doctrine, you have an Islamic political idea, but it is okay as long as it follow the Pancasila, the 5 principles. So to do that, he did a lot of things. First, he kind of used all the political party and to reduce the number of the political party that is allowed at the time, about 40 something, into only three parties, or literally actually only 2 parties. The first is the Islamic political parties is fused into one new political party, the United Development Party, Partai Persatuan Pembangunan. This is consists all the Islamic group into one. To let you know, the Islamic group is never one actually. It's divided into small factions. Muhammadiyah, Nahdlatul Ulama, and other Islamic group. While the secular group, the former Sukarno parties, the Partai Nasional Indonesia (PNI), and other smaller group fused into one, Partai Demokrasi Indonesia, Indonesian Democratic Party, that is now still exists up to now. Now the current party, the ruling party in Indonesia, is a Democratic Party. And to support his own agenda, Suharto create what is called a golongan karya, literally mean functional group, consisting of a military backup. So all the military member is member of golongan karya, all the public official is member of golongan karya, and any small non-government organization but very political to be part of that. And while golongan karya is not considered as a political party, but golongan karya participate in the election. And it's like everybody should be part of golongan karya. If you want to be part of the government, if you want to be part of the Suharto project, you have to be part of golongan karya. But it's not political party, but participate in election. So in every election, golongan karya have won. The rule of golongan karya is very important here, because then every political agenda, political project, political decision made by the Suharto is always have a very huge support from golongan karya, which is for years dominate the parliament. These are the 3 political parties during the New Orders: the United Development Party, with a star, with a green one. Yellow one is the Golongan Karya, and the red one is a Democratic Indonesia, Partai Demokrasi Indonesia. So the color in Indonesia is very sensitive. You are green, you are yellow, you are red is representing something. The another project, part of the politicization of Pancasila under the Suharto regime is, you might be familiar with the term indoctrination of Pancasila. To make sure everybody, every people in Indonesia, regardless of their ethnicity, regardless of their social class, regardless of their education background, religion, have to subdue to the value of Pancasila. To make sure that Pancasila is becoming a way of life, a reference for all activities of Indonesian people. So it means everybody should know Pancasila, memorize it, understood its meaning, its implication, and follow as if as a religion, if we can say that. That is called the project, call it the 4P. In bahasa Indonesia is P4, pedoman, penghayatan, dan pengamalan Pancasila, or simply meaning the guide for understanding and practicing Pancasila. And they have a special body, the BP7, the government agency responsible to do with the P4 project, the 4P project. Impact in the education was huge. At every school, there is a moral education of Pancasila, starting from the elementary, secondary, primary school, even the college and universities. So all of the people should have a course, should have learned Pancasila and memorized that very. And all of the understanding of the meaning, implication, could be similar. So it's kind of a unitary, uniform. Even today in Indonesia, for the first grade, for a student in the university and a undergraduate student in the university, they have a compulsory course on Pancasila, named as a Pancasila Citizenship Education. It's actually kind of a citizenship education, but imbued with the value of Pancasila. And to let you know, this course, Indonesian Value and Ideologies, which is designed for the international program. I mean for the Indonesian student undergrad who study here. They don't have a Pancasila course anymore, but they have this. So Indonesian Value and Ideologies is kind of a replacement course for the Pancasila for the regular student. The compulsory course on Pancasila is not only for students, it's for everybody. Public official should have the course on that. We apply and accept it as in the recruitment of public official. And the first time before you learn what your responsibility, your task, your role in the government, first you have to pass the Pancasila test and take the Pancasila course before. So another step of the politicization of Pancasila is Suharto have made a new law, what it call it, to make it Pancasila as the sole basis of political ideology or all political and civil organization in the country. So whatever your political parties, whatever your organization, whatever anything, even the just small group, small community in the village, or your informal organization in the university, you have to subdue your value, your value of your organization, your community, under the Pancasila. So the rule is simple actually, but It's not easy. Take for example for the Muslim group. And the Muslim group, they always put their religion, their God, as the first place, the philosophical base for their organization, their activities, because they are religious. What's mean religious mean like that. So they also put the God will, as it said in the Quran, the holy book, and Hadith as the source for philosophically for their activities, their organization. And now the government say, oh no, don't do that. You have to put Pancasila first, and then you put your belief, your holy book, your Hadith, your God after that. So the result is not easy. It's very difficult. Many Muslim groups reject the idea and try to protest, but if you protest, you will be disbanded. One of I know is one of the Muslim student organization, the HMI, Himpunan Mahasiswa Indonesia. At the time, it's divided into two. There is a group, they reject the idea and becoming illegal, and there is another group that is accept the Pancasila as the sole foundation of the state, and that is becoming legal. The rule is not easy for the Muslim organization like Muhammadiyah and Nahdlatul Ulama, which take time to accept that, though finally they agreed with that. So the Suharto put a lot of pressure on that. They try to kick out any group, any communities, any people who disagree with them by testing them the acceptance to Pancasila. So it's kind of abuse of power. If there is a group protesting, there is a group disagree with the government policy, there is a group that try to do their own thing independently, the Suharto regime will say, you are against Pancasila. It's not against new order, but against Pancasila. So what is meant here is Pancasila is becoming a stamp to kick out any opposition in the country in Indonesia. This is what it means as authoritarian regime. And Pancasila is used to legitimate their will to control all the population. This kind of a development, Pancasila is quite, Robert Bella says about the civil religion. The civil religion, it means a certain fundamental belief, value, holidays, ritual parallel to the independent of their chosen religion. So it's mean kind of a rule of law for everything. So whatever your religion, so Pancasila is like a new kind, the very big umbrella of all religion in Indonesia. So it's kind of it's a source for everything. Civil religion means obeying the law because you're following Pancasila. So when you drive a motorcycle, you ride motorcycle, you wear helmet. You do helmet not because you concerned with your safety, but you do that because you follow the Pancasila rule. You attend the class regularly, pay attention to the course. You do that because you follow Pancasila. You're working hard because you're a follower of Pancasila. You're respecting others because you implement the Pancasila values. And even you pray to God, you worship, you do your ritual according to your religion, is actually practicing Pancasila value. So this is how the way Pancasila is becoming the very, very philosophical, very, very base of everything in Indonesia. After the development, there is a follow-up with call it religionization, the establishment of MORA, Ministry of Religious Affairs, and followed by the Council of the Muslim Ulama, and all of relate with the organization. So what's meant here, the Pancasila is, with its first, its belief in God, it's not implied it have implication in the life or religious life of the Indonesian society in general. Religion is becoming more important. They're becoming like a very powerful. They do that everything. And also you know what is important. I have to say this. The keluarga berencana, or the planet birth control, the planet family. So in 80s, Indonesia is facing a very big problem with the increased rate of fertility. The fertility rate was increased dramatically, and if not controlled, the population will be boom, will be explode into 400 million today. But Indonesia is considered as one of the country that is implement the very strict birth control and very success. And the process is very smooth. And they do all of them with the Pancasila value. So after the Pancasila is established, internalized as becoming a value of the society, of the nation, of the state, then it also can be used to impose, to persuade people to follow the Pancasila rule, and especially in the context to do the birth control. The family, particularly for the public official. At the time, for the Indonesian who are public official, they allow only to have two kids. So the third kid will be like unwanted. It will be exempted from the health insurance, exempted for the kind of subsidized from the government if you are public official, and that then follow by the company and you're working in private. What it's mean with the Islamist challenge? I will say a bit of context. While now the majority of the Indonesian population are Muslim, but Islam is not always at home here. After the Suharto take a power, toppled the Sukarno from presidency, and develop their own regime, and get a lot of support from the Muslim group, the military, the aristocracy, even the technocrats, the academia, student, and many groups. But Muslim in the following period is always singled out by Suharto. You're asking why? Muslim is always blamed, or they have a different agenda for the state, for the nation. It's a belief, likely, that Muslim in Indonesia have the idea, this always preserve the idea to create the Islamic State in very strong or mild manner. Oh, I mean, they try to make it state to responsible with the government, with the Islamic affair within the population. So there is kind of a goal for Muslim that state to accommodate the implementation of Sharia in the public life of the nation. You know, the original first sila of Pancasila is not only believe in God, but believe in God with the obligation to carry out the Islamic Sharia for its adult. The Sukarno, they don't want to take back the word and stick with the belief in God Almighty. Suharto do the same. So they stop. And for years, in 70s, in 80s, Suharto is always attacked or tried to limit the influence of Islam, the Muslim group, the process of Islamization in the Indonesian society. I will say, for example, when Suharto had to ban the hijab for the school student, particularly in their school certificate. So at the time, if you are a female student, you are Muslim, and you are hijab, and you're going to graduate from school, and you're going to have the school certificate, and there's a photograph of you in the certificate, it's not allowed for you to wear your hijab in the photograph. So they can ban for that. Then older, like the law to put Pancasila as the sole philosophical basis of all organization, including the religious organization, to put Muslim organization to put Pancasila first, and then put the religious book, the holy book, the Quran, the Hadith, and God, believe in God. Second, is a very direct attack to the Muslim group. That's why the Reformation is kind of the opportunity for Muslims to retreat back to the idea of the belief in God with the obligation to carry out the Islamic Sharia for its adherents as the first sila of Pancasila, officially acknowledged by the state and implemented. So this kind of a process should happen in the Islamic challenge. So just after the Reformation, to do that, they're asking to challenge that. So it means to back to the original idea. The Islam is challenged, then not only that. In 2001, there is a debate of the National Education Act, which is the debate on the religious education. Is in the school, for the school student, do they need religious education, or should the government responsible to provide religious education for the student? Yeah, they want. There is obligation here for all the education institution to provide religious education for its students. I'm not sure for the international program, the IUP, but for the regular student here in Gadjah Mada, it's compulsory for the university to provide the religious education for the student. So kind of a boom other law, a local regulation, which is have a Sharia inspiration. It means the law that accommodate the demand of the Islamic affair, the government of Islamic affair in the Indonesian population. For example, other exception like a Halal Certification Act. It's a law. Every kind of food in Indonesia should have a halal certification. It's kind of a to make it religious rule as a legal or state government rule. What is mean Islamic challenge? Within some ways, it's a bit anti-secular agenda. If you know, if you're familiar with the debate again. We discussed about the debate about secular and Islam here. The debate is that. Okay, so the future of Pancasila. Now we are on the brink. Pancasila maybe not questioned again, as highly questioned after the Reformation. It's likely to agree that Pancasila have a very prominent role to compromise, to accommodate a lot of faction, a lot of group, political group, religious group, ethnic group in Indonesia, and becoming kind of an idea, the dream, the way the Indonesia should be governed. But considering its abuse both by the Sukarno regime and then by the Soeharto regime, and currently by the Jokowi in some ways. So what is future then? So we really still need a Pancasila, or so we have kind of a change. For example, the way Pancasila for secular nationalists, secular societal value, limited role of religion and public life. So it's the idea of Pancasila in some ways. Pancasila for social activists, social welfare, again economic liberalization, the social justice, the way now Indonesia, the Gini ratio, the social inequality, social economic inequality is getting wider and wider. So social justice is a very big problem. Pancasila for the Islamists. Islam, adopted by the majority, should be accommodated in public life. Should public sphere accommodate religious affairs? Now it's very massive in Indonesia. Pancasila for minorities, how the equal right for all citizens is implemented here, regardless of the religion, social class, and ethnicities. So the future. Could Pancasila solve, or could Indonesian, by following the rule of Pancasila, solve all the problem? What kind of project, what kind of a program, what kind of a value, what kind of activities have to be done? So the last part of the course is again the future of Pancasila, how the Pancasila should be kind of a source to guarantee freedom of religion and religious of tolerance, to guarantee human rights, national unity, democracy, and social justice. So what I mean here, for the conclusion, yes, Pancasila, again, is very prominent to unite all factions of Indonesia in the beginning of the era, in the early time, the creation of the state, the nation, in 1945. But Pancasila have a bit dark history during the New Order, as it used to legitimate to stem the totalitarian or authoritarian of the Suharto regime. And now it's going for open for interpretation again. So this is very big question. Even for Indonesian, it's big question. So we still believe with Pancasila. We still have a commitment to do with Pancasila. So we have agreement, common understanding about Pancasila, about belief in God, about humanity, about the unity, about democracy, about the social justice, as it says in the first principle of Pancasila. Okay, thank you. See you for the next lecture. Bye-bye.